Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome if you're new. I hope you're all doing well and welcome back to my Magical Hopathon TBR video. Just as a little bit of a disclaimer, if you can hear a lisp in my voice, that is because I've started wearing retainers to fix my overlap on my front tooth, which really irritates me and gives me like self-confidence issues, especially when I watch myself on my YouTube videos, editing, filming them, and all that fun stuff. So I've invested in some Smile Direct aligners, which over the next like 6 or so months are going to straighten out my top teeth, which I'm so thankful for. I'm very excited. So if you can hear a little bit of a lisp or a little bit of like I'm talking a little bit weirdly, it's because I only got these in the post like half an hour ago and I was so excited that I had to put them in. And then afterwards I was like, I have to film a video. So there's that. But nevertheless, this is a very exciting video because it's a Magical Hopathon TBR video. I have a lot of books I want to read next week because if you're watching this as I post it live Sunday 5 PM, then the Magical Hopathon round 3 starts tomorrow. I'm so excited. I'm wearing my Disney 100th celebration matching tracky set. Where is the text? The text is on this side. I don't know if you can see, but it says Disney 100 down the sleeve. Mickey, the characters are on the back. I'm full get up in my 100th tracksuit set, which I am obsessed with. I have my Walt Disney World 50th anniversary ears on. I am ready to go. I'm even wearing matching purple socks, if you can see that. But yeah, I'm just very excited. I have ambitious plans for next week. So am I hopeful that I can get all these done? No, but am I going to try anyway? Yes. So without further ado, let's jump straight in to my TBR. If you have no idea what I'm on about and you're like, you are very excited for a reason I have no idea what. That is because I host what is called the Magical Hopathon, and it's basically a readathon that I host once a year dedicated to the Disney parks and resorts around the world. The first one was to celebrate Walt Disney World's 50th anniversary. The second one was to celebrate Disneyland Paris's 30th, and this one is to celebrate the 100 years of the Disney company, which is turning 100 tomorrow, October 16th. So that's why we are doing the readathon next week, because it is its actual anniversary, Monday the 16th of October. So that is the readathon. There's a whole bingo board that I'll show you guys because obviously I want to try and complete the entire bingo board, which is why my TBR is so ambitious, even with the help of doubling up on prompts. So without further ado, let's just go left to right down the bingo board and I'll tell you exactly what I'm reading for which prompts. Starting off in the top left corner with the 1920s, which is to read a book with a strong family dynamic, because the 1920s was when Walt and Roy started the Walt Disney Company, and it's a brother duo if you weren't aware. So for that one, I am going to read a book that's been on my TBR for ages, and I've actually already started reading once before. I just want to give it one more go. If I DNF it, that is fine. I don't know how I'm going to work DNFs next week. If I give myself over 100 pages and then I DNF, I still think I'm going to count that prompt as complete, because otherwise I'm never going to get through my TBR. But I'm going to give this one a go anyway. I got 200 pages into it last time, so I know I can at least get 200 pages into it. And that is Yoke by Mary H.K. Choi. When I read this last time, it was very heavily on the sister dynamic, because this follows two sisters, June and Jane. One of them gets cancer, unfortunately, and they're not kind of really friendly anymore. And then when one of them gets diagnosed with cancer, they kind of come back into each other's lives. I cannot really remember much about this. It is a YA, so I'm hoping this is a faster read because it is quite chunky. I've done the calculations. If I read every single book in this stack that I'm about to show you across next week, I'll be reading on average 380 pages a day to get them all done. So it's basically a book a day, which is very intense because they're all chunky. I didn't pick any thin books at all. They're all like 350 plus books apart from one. And I don't know if I hate myself for that or whether I'm just feeling very ambitious. I don't know. But this is the first book on my TBR for the prompt of 20s to read a book with a strong family dynamic. The next is the 60s, and for that prompt is to read a book that you can't stop thinking about, because in the 60s was when Disneyland in California opened its first ever sound animatronic ride with Enchanted Tiki Room, which has a song that is very repetitive and very much a brainworm. When it gets stuck in your head, you can't stop singing it across the rest of the day. So for that one, a book that I can't stop thinking about and will actually hopefully tick off a book off my end of year TBR. So I'm really trying to like get this TBR down and kind of actually be useful for my future self. And that one I'm going to be reading Abby Jimenez's Yours Truly. I haven't stopped thinking about this book since it first came out, and not when it first came out, but when everyone started talking about it and I actually realised what it was about, I haven't stopped thinking about it. And then I picked up my own copy and I've just been eager to read it ever since, but I've never really found the right time to. So with this being a almost 400-page book, I decided why not try and read it during a week-long readathon, because that makes absolute complete sense. As far as I'm aware, Abby Jimenez is apparently a very, very popular romance author. I am a romance reader, so it kind of makes sense that I try and read one of her books. This will be the first book I read from her. I know Part of Your World is kind of part of the same series, but this one has a kidney transplant in it, and I've had a kidney transplant, and that is the only reason I want to read this book. I have, unfortunately, since buying this, heard that it's enemies to lovers, and I don't love enemies to lovers as a book trope. So we'll see how this one goes. I believe the audiobook was on Scribd, so if any of these books are on Scribd via audiobooks, they will be being mixed media read across the week, because I read quicker listening to the audiobook on 3 times speed and reading the book along with it most of the time. So I think that might be a really big key for me to try and read all these books, because there are 8 in this stack if you weren't aware. 8 books in 7 days, and they're all like 350 to 400 pages. So this will complete the prompt for the 60s to read a book you can't stop thinking about. On the next prompt across in the same row, we're still doing the top one, is the noughties, and that's to read a book with an illustrated cover, because in the 2000s was when Disney brought out Pixar, and obviously Pixar do all animated movies. So I'm going to do my first doubling up, and I'm going to be reading Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez for the noughties as well, because it's got some illustrated people on the cover. So that's that one. So already for the first row, I'll be reading 2 books, because the last prompt in that row is to share your TBR, which I'm doing right here on this channel with this video. So that can tick that one right off. I'll be ticking it off on day 1, and I cannot wait. The next row has a free prompt, which just means you can tick it off without doing anything. It's a little freebie, so I can tick that one right off without reading any books. The next one is to watch a Disney film, which of course I'll be doing probably in this getup, probably during a live reading sprint that I'm hosting across the entire week. So if you want to see the live reading schedule, I'll link it down below, along with the rest of the templates that are part of this readathon on the Readathon Pacific Instagram page. And then the first prompt within that row is the 1950s, to read a book by a debut author, because that in the 1950s was when Disneyland California opened for the first ever time, which is the first ever Disney theme park across the world. And for that one, because it's a debut author, I'm going to be reading Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. Once again, the audiobook is on Scribd for this one, so I much appreciate that one, because this one is also over 400 pages. So this is 430 pages. I'm trying to read a book a day. This is getting intense, and I, once again, low-key hate myself for it, but also very, very excited to try and read all these books. If I don't complete this entire TBR, you will kind of be seeing in-time vlogs, because I'm going to be doing like day 1, day 2, upload, day 3, day 4, upload. Kind of like daily vlogs for the readathon will be coming out. So if I ever switch things up, switch out books, kind of make some more doubling up happen, or just kind of realise that I cannot complete this entire bingo board, so we'll be cutting back, then that will all be kind of documented across on those vlogs. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss those. But this one is a double up, so I'm also going to be doubling up with the other prompt in this row, which is the 90s, which is to read a book set in a different country, because that's when Disneyland Paris opened, which is obviously set in a different country to America, where the first Disney park opened. And I believe this is American because it's ice hockey, and we do not have ice hockey in the UK. So I'm assuming this one is set in America. The only thing I know about this book is that it's very, very popular. Wildfire just came out, which I think is the sequel to this book. I believe this is Hannah Grace's debut book, because I did some Googling to try and fit this prompt, and this was one of the only books on my TBR that was a debut author book. So fingers crossed it actually is, and my research has done me well. All I know is that it's a ice hockey, ice skater romance that gets a bit spicy, and that's all I need to know. If it's enemies to lovers, I'm not going to be very happy, but we'll see. We have to go into it to find out. Going down into the third row, we have the prompt for the 80s, which is to read a children's book or YA book, because that is when Disney Channel launched for the first time, which is obviously targeted towards the younger audience. And I will be doubling up that one with Yoke, which I've already mentioned, because if you look at the bingo board that's on screen now, thank you editing Rachel, the 20s and the 80s are in the same column together. So with this readathon, you can double up on prompts as long as they're in the same row or column. So this one, although fits completely different rows, it fits the same column if you go down the left-hand side. So I'm doubling up on that one for reading a YA book, because this is a YA. Then we come across, going back to the row to the 2020s, which is to read a TBR vet, because the 2020s is when Disney are celebrating their 100th year of being a company, which is a very long time, so you've got to read a book that's been on your TBR for a very long time. And for that one of the only books that I really kind of feel like in the mood to read that's been on my TBR for quite a while, because I'm actually quite good at kind of getting books, reading them, so my TBR is always kind of ever changing. So the book I've chosen is Has Anyone Seen My Sex Life by Christian Bailey. This is a kind of women's literature, chick flick sort of book about a woman who hasn't had sex in a very long time, and is it normal for your washing machine to get more action than you? And she has 2 children, and I think her marriage is about to come to an end, and she's just trying to navigate motherhood and parents and being an adult. And apparently I was actually going to get rid of this book off my TBR, like unhaul it, without even reading it, because I wasn't really interested in it anymore. And then someone commented on one of my videos a very long time ago saying, this book is really good, so is the series, Kristen Bailey's one of my favourite authors. And I was like, okay, I need to hold on to this, I need to give it a chance. So hopefully the Magical Hopathon will allow me to read it. The next prompt is to join a live reading sprint. I'll be hosting 5 reading sprints across the 7 days of this readathon, so I can definitely check off to join a live reading sprint, which is brilliant. So that's that prompt done. And then the last reading prompt within this 3rd row is the 40s. Listen to an audiobook, because this is when Walt Disney voiced Mickey Mouse for the final time, so I thought you could read an audiobook for it. I am going to mix media this one, and I'm going to listen to an audiobook and read along to Love Struck by Laura Jane Williams. I've tried reading this before, but I was kind of in a slump, so I didn't really pay much attention to it. I did count Laura Jane Williams as one of my favourite authors, but her last 3 releases really haven't been my cup of tea, unfortunately. I'm giving her one last go with Love Struck, because there's something that keeps pulling me to these books anyway, even though I know they're not really my favourite anymore, because I just kind of want to know that I've read a recent release of hers that it's actually good. I always have hope for her, and then they always come crashing down once I finish the books, but I have hope with this one as well. This one is a really interesting concept though, because this one follows our main character who is struggling with romance, and she's just broken up with her ex, and she's hosting a manifestation, getting over my ex, I need a new man in my life ceremony at a yoga class, because I have started reading this book already. In the past I will be restarting it for this readathon because I can't remember much about it. And then after this ceremony she gets a text from her ex being like, hey. So you actually follow this book in dual timeline. You follow one scenario where she says yes and she replies to X about meeting up, and then you also follow a scenario where she says no to X and she kind of continues her life getting over him and all this sort of fun stuff. So you kind of get is he Mr. Right, or did she get a lucky escape from breaking up with him sort of thing. So I'm intrigued about this one. Hopefully the audiobook will help me get through it quite quickly, because once again this is a 400-page book. Yep, 410, so making myself have an easy life next week for sure. The last row that I need to complete, hopefully I'll complete it anyway, is to do a form of self-care. I think I'll most likely be watching another Disney film, because I think I'll need a break with Disney films, having read so many pages. So that's that one done. And then the next reading prompt is the 1930s, which is to read a book that's won an award, because this was when Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs came out, and it was the first feature film animation that ever came out, and it won an incredible Oscar that's one of a kind. It has all the statues. It has 8 statues rather than just the one, to mimic Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So it's a very, very epic kind of once in a lifetime award that's probably never going to get given out again. And for that one, I actually realised that Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton is a book that's won an award, which I didn't realise. This is a non-fiction book, which I've been wanting to read for ages. Because everyone loves it, and I think it's a perfect time to read it, because I'm in my 20s and I think it'll just be interesting to kind of see what Dolly Alderton got up to in her life during her 20s, and yeah, hopefully I love it because everyone else does. So it kind of covers anything from dates, jobs, friends, love, and kind of loss, and everything else in between that you kind of have to deal with in your adulthood. So I think it might just be a nice eye-opening experience for me to maybe feel like I'm not alone. And I have actually tabbed this one up because I'm planning on reading 50 pages a day, kind of to slowly get my way through this one, because I know that unlike these ones where I probably could just sit down and read an entire fiction story in a day, I don't think I could do that with a non-fiction. One, I want to absorb myself into it. I really want to get the most out of it. I really want to feel like I'm reading this book rather than rushing through it. And I also feel like I just don't want, I know some people say it reads like fiction, but I don't want to have to read 300 pages of a really dense book if it is dense for me. So I kind of split out between 50 pages a day, just kind of it'd be a nice change as well. Say if I'm reading this one all in one day, to kind of switch up to a non-fiction, maybe halfway through, just to kind of get a little bit of a break. So that's kind of the plan with this one. I split it up between 7 days, 50-ish pages a day, and hopefully I can smash that one out. And then the next prompt I need to complete is the 70s, which is my favorite park opening. Walt Disney World opened for the first time, so you need to read an anticipated release, because after the success of Disneyland in California, Walt Disney World was very much anticipated by the public and the media and everything back then. So for this one, I'm going to be reading Yellowface by R.F. Kuang, because this is a book that has been very much anticipated for me. It's been very much anticipated for everyone who loves R.F. Kuang. This will be my first R.F. Kuang book, which I'm very, very excited for, because obviously she writes a lot of high fantasy, which will never be my genre no matter how hard I try. So it's really nice to be able to experience her writing, experience kind of like the hype around her and her books without having to delve and get my teeth into a high fantasy. So this is the contemporary kind of like a satire look at the publishing industry. Then there's two best friends, and one of them passes away and the other one steals her manuscript and publishes it under her own name, and it's kind of like shedding a light on like what's wrong with the publishing industry. And this is the shortest book that I have on my TBR. It's just under 300 pages, just over 300 pages. 310. I thought it was a bit smaller than that, but probably because it felt smaller compared to like a 400-page book. I don't know what I'm doing to myself. So that is the last book that I need to read in this readathon to complete the prompt for the 70s. And then the last prompt is the 2010s, which is when Disney Resort Aulani opened in Hawaii for the first time. So for that you need to read a book that you would take to the beach, that you'd read on the beach, like a nice kind of cute fluffy romance sort of thing, in my sort of vibe. Any book that you'd read on the beach, whether you read a thriller on the beach, whatever, just a kind of a book that you would take on holiday and read at the beach, because it's a beach resort. And so for that one, I'm gonna be doubling up that prompt with Love Struck by Laura Jane Williams, because with the graphic, once again, it's the same column. So the 40s and the 2010s are next to each other in the last column this time. So I can double up on that prompt and complete this. And this one just kind of reminds me of the beach. It's got the blues, it's got the greens, it's got the pastel-y like palette. It's a summery romance, and yeah, I'm gonna be reading that one for the last prompt. And if I manage to read all these books next week, I would have completed the entire bingo board. I'm not going to put a downer on myself, but I'll be very, very accomplished if I manage to complete all these, because they're not small books, and at the minute I just about managed to read 8 books in a month, let alone a week. But all I'll be doing next week is host live reading sprints and reading. I am completely off work for the entire week, so I have no other plans. My schedule and calendar is completely clear, so I have nothing else to look forward to bar reading 8 books, which I'm very, very excited to do. Hopefully I can do it. If you'd like to see me succeed or fail, then make sure to subscribe so you don't miss those vlogs that I spoke about earlier, because they'll be coming kind of continually throughout the readathon, and then kind of like completing the set at the beginning of next week, if that makes sense. So day 1 and day 2 will be coming Wednesday, day 3 and day 4 will be coming like Friday, and then day 5 and day 6 and day 7 will be coming the following Tuesday. So there's lots of vlog content coming your way, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss that. If you are participating in a Magical Hopathon, let me know in the comments down below what you're planning on reading, what you're most excited for, what are your favourite prompts, which books are you looking forward to reading. Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you get a massive thumbs up. And also comment down below if you have faith in me about whether I'm going to be able to complete this TBR or not, because I'm going to be interested to see if people have faith in me or think that I'm way overly ambitious. I would love to know. And on that note, I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys!